The rusted iron door groaned on its hinges as Vincent Jamison descended into the darkness beneath the abandoned farmhouse, his lantern casting eerie shadows against stone walls that reeked of mildew and despair. He had been tracking the Cassidy gang for 3 weeks across the Wyoming Territory, following their trail of stolen cattle and burned homesteads through the summer of 1873. The trail had gone cold near Sierra City, a small mining town nestled in the Sierra Madre Range just across the border in California. Vincent had almost given up when he noticed fresh wagon tracks leading to this dilapidated property 5 miles outside town. The house appeared empty, ransacked months ago by the look of it, but something had drawn him to investigate further. Perhaps it was the way his horse had grown skittish near the barn, or maybe just the instinct he had developed during his years as a ranch hand, an occasional tracker for the territorial marshal. Now, as he reached the bottom of the narrow stairs, he heard it. A soft whimper, barely audible, coming from the far corner of the cellar. Vincent raised his lantern higher and his breath caught in his throat. There, chained to a support beam by heavy iron shackles, was a woman. Her dress was torn and filthy, her dark hair matted and hanging in tangles around her face. But it was her eyes that struck him most forcefully. They were the color of storm clouds, and despite the obvious suffering she had endured, they held a fierce determination that spoke of an unbroken spirit. "Please," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Please help me." Vincent set the lantern down and rushed to her side, his hands already reaching for the chains. "Who did this to you? How long have you been down here?" 3 days without food or water," she said, her lips cracked and bleeding. "Maybe 4, I lost count. They said they would come back for me, that I was their insurance. Are you with them?" "No, madam, I am tracking them, though. The Cassidy gang." He examined the heavy padlock securing the chains. It was solid iron, well made. He would need tools to break it. She nodded weakly. "They raided our wagon 2 weeks ago, killed the men traveling with us, took me and another woman, Martha. They kept us both at first, but then they sold Martha to some trappers heading north. I fought too much, so they kept me as leverage. Said my father would pay handsomely to get me back." "Your father?" "Patrick Foster. He owns a ranch near Sacramento. They sent him a ransom note." Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back angrily. "I am Penelope Foster." Vincent pulled off his hat respectfully. "Vincent Jamison, miss. I work the Double R Ranch most of the year, but Marshal Henderson asked me to track these men. I am going to get you out of here, I promise you that." He examined the chains more carefully. They were secured with a heavy padlock that would require either the key or significant force to open. Vincent tried pulling at the beam itself, testing its strength, but it was solid oak, likely supporting the entire structure above. "I need to find something to break this lock," he said. "Stay quiet. If any of them are still nearby, I do not want them knowing I am here yet." Penelope grabbed his wrist with surprising strength for someone in her condition. "Do not leave me, please. They said they would come back today. If they find you gone and me alone, they will kill me for sure." Vincent saw the terror in her eyes and made a decision. "All right, I will work with what I have here." He drew his revolver from its holster. "Turn your face away and cover your ears. I am going to shoot the lock. The noise will bring them if they are anywhere close. Then I will deal with them, but I am not leaving you chained down here 1 minute longer than necessary." Penelope turned her face toward the wall, and Vincent aimed carefully at the lock mechanism. The shot was deafening in the confined space, the report echoing off the stone walls like thunder. The lock shattered, pieces of metal flying in different directions. Vincent holstered his gun and quickly unwound the chains from around Penelope's wrists. She collapsed forward and he caught her, supporting her weight against his chest. She weighed almost nothing, her body weakened by days of captivity and deprivation. Up close, he could see the bruises on her arms, the cut on her cheek, the way her hands shook from exhaustion and fear. "Can you walk?" he asked gently. "I will crawl if I have to," she said with that same fierce determination he had seen in her eyes. "Just get me out of this place." Vincent helped her to her feet, keeping one arm around her waist to steady her. They made it halfway up the stairs before he heard the sound that confirmed his worst fears. Horses. Multiple riders approaching fast, drawn by the gunshot. "Damn," he muttered. "All right, change of plans. We need to move quickly." They emerged from the cellar into the dim interior of the abandoned farmhouse. Vincent could see through the broken windows that 4 men were dismounting outside, their hands already on their weapons. He recognized the leader from the descriptions he had been given. Jack Cassidy himself, tall and lean with a scar running down the left side of his face. "Someone is in there," one of the men called out. That shot came from inside. Vincent looked around desperately for another exit. The front door was blocked by the gang members. The back door led to an open yard with no cover. Their only chance was surprise. "Can you shoot?" he asked Penelope. She nodded, taking the spare revolver he pulled from his belt. Her hands were steadier now, filled with purpose. "My father taught me when I was 12. I am a good shot." "Then we are going out the back. My horse is tied in the trees about 50 yards behind the house. We get to him, we ride hard for Sierra City. The marshal there is a friend. He will help us." "What about them?" "I will slow them down. You just focus on running." Vincent kicked open the back door and fired 2 shots toward the front of the house, not aiming to kill but to scatter the men and buy precious seconds. Then he and Penelope were running across the overgrown yard, her hand gripped tightly in his as they raced toward the tree line. Shouts erupted behind them. Return fire cracked through the air, bullets whipping past them and kicking up dirt at their feet. Penelope stumbled, her weakened legs giving out, but Vincent caught her and half carried, half dragged her the remaining distance. His horse, a sturdy bay gelding named Ranger, waited patiently where he had left him. Vincent lifted Penelope into the saddle and swung up behind her, his arms coming around her to grip the reins. He dug his heels into Ranger's flanks, and the horse leaped forward just as the Cassidy gang burst into the clearing behind them. They rode hard through the forest, branches whipping at their faces, the sound of pursuit growing louder behind them. Ranger was a good horse, strong and sure-footed, but he was carrying double and the gang members' mounts were fresh. Vincent knew they could not outrun them forever. "There," Penelope gasped, pointing ahead to where the forest opened onto a rocky hillside. "That trail leads down to the main road. We can lose them in the rocks." Vincent trusted her judgment and guided Ranger toward the trail she had indicated. It was narrow and treacherous, barely wide enough for a horse and rider, winding between massive boulders that had tumbled down from the mountains above. Behind them, he heard the gang members slow as they reached the same trail, forced to proceed more carefully. The trail descended steeply, and Vincent had to grip Penelope tightly to keep them both in the saddle as Ranger picked his way down the rocky path. She fit against him perfectly, her body molding to his despite the desperate circumstances. He could feel her heart racing, could smell the scent of her hair even through the dirt and fear. There was something about her, something beyond her beauty or her courage, that called to something deep inside him. They reached the main road as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Sierra City was still miles away, but they had gained some distance on their pursuers. Vincent urged Ranger into a steady gallop, knowing they needed to reach town before darkness fell completely. "Thank you," Penelope said, her voice barely audible over the thunder of hoofbeats. "You saved my life." "We are not safe yet," Vincent replied, but he felt a warmth spread through his chest at her words. "Just hold on. We will make it." As they rode, Penelope began to shake, the adrenaline that had sustained her finally wearing off. Vincent could feel the tremors running through her body, could sense that she was reaching the end of her strength. He slowed Ranger to a walk and adjusted his grip on her, offering what comfort he could. "Talk to me," he said softly. "Stay awake. Tell me about your father's ranch." "It is beautiful," she said, her words slurring slightly. "Green pastures as far as you can see. We raise horses mostly. The finest stock in California. My father started it 20 years ago with nothing but a dream and his bare hands." She paused, taking a shuddering breath. "He will be so worried." "They took me while I was traveling to visit my aunt in Nevada. The whole wagon train was attacked. How many were with you? 6 men, 3 women, all dead except for me and Martha. And I do not know if Martha is even alive anymore." Her voice broke. "Those trappers who bought her, they looked cruel. I tried to fight harder so they would take me instead, but Martha told me to be quiet. She said I was young and had my whole life ahead of me. She was 43, had already buried 2 husbands. She made me promise that if I got the chance to escape, I would take it and not worry about her." Vincent felt anger burning in his gut at the casual cruelty Penelope described. He had seen much during his years in the West, had known that life here could be harsh and unforgiving, but the calculated evil of men like the Cassidy gang never failed to sicken him. "We will tell the marshal everything," he said. "He will send telegrams, try to find Martha. And he will make sure those men pay for what they did." "Do you really believe that?" Penelope asked, turning her head to look up at him. "Do you really think there is justice out here?" Vincent met her eyes, seeing the doubt and pain in them. "I have to believe it," he said. "Otherwise, what is the point of any of this?" They rode in silence for a while longer, the darkness deepening around them. Vincent kept watching their back trail, but he saw no sign of pursuit. Perhaps the gang had given up, or perhaps they were simply waiting for a better opportunity. Either way, he would not relax until Penelope was safely behind the marshal's walls. Sierra City appeared ahead of them like a beacon, its lights twinkling in the darkness. The town was larger than Vincent had expected, a prosperous mining community that had grown rapidly over the past few years. The main street was wide and well-maintained, lined with storefronts and saloons. Even at this hour, people were out and about, miners who worked the night shift heading to their claims, businessmen closing up their shops. Vincent guided Ranger straight to the marshal's office, a solid brick building near the center of town. He dismounted and helped Penelope down, keeping a supporting arm around her as her legs nearly gave out again. The marshal, a stocky man in his 50s with steel gray hair and sharp blue eyes, looked up from his desk as they entered. His expression shifted from mild curiosity to alarm as he took in Penelope's condition. "Good Lord," he said, rising quickly. "What happened, Marshal Duncan?" Vincent asked, remembering the name Marshal Henderson had given him. "I am Vincent Jamison, sent by Marshal Henderson in Wyoming. This is Miss Penelope Foster. She was held captive by the Cassidy gang. I found her chained in a cellar 5 miles outside town. The gang is still out there and they will be coming for her." Marshal Duncan moved quickly, calling for his deputy and ushering them into a back room with a cot. "Get Doc Morrison," he ordered the deputy. "Tell him it is urgent." Then he turned to Penelope, his voice gentling. "Miss, you are safe now. No one is going to hurt you here." Penelope nodded weakly and sank onto the cot. Now that they had stopped moving, now that the immediate danger had passed, her body was shutting down. Her eyes fluttered closed, and Vincent knelt beside her, taking her hand. "Stay with us," he said urgently. "The doctor is coming. You are going to be fine." Her eyes opened again, focusing on his face. "You saved me," she whispered. "I do not even know you, but you risked your life to save me. Why?" Vincent found himself lost in those storm-gray eyes, unable to articulate the answer that rose from somewhere deep in his soul. "Because it was the right thing to do," he said finally. "Because no one deserves what they did to you. Because—" He trailed off, not sure how to finish that sentence. The doctor arrived in a flurry of activity, a small man with thinning hair and gentle hands. He shooed Vincent out of the room and got to work examining Penelope. Vincent found himself pacing in the marshal's office, his mind racing. Marshal Duncan watched him with knowing eyes. "Henderson sent me a telegram about you," he said. "Said you were one of the best trackers he had ever worked with. Said you had a strong moral compass and could be trusted." "I just did what anyone would do," Vincent said, but even as the words left his mouth, he knew they were not entirely true. Plenty of men would have walked away, would have decided that rescuing Penelope was too dangerous or not their concern. "The Cassidy gang has been operating in this area for months," the marshal continued. "They are smart, careful. We have come close to catching them a few times, but they always slip away. If what you say is true, if they were holding Miss Foster for ransom, that gives us leverage. They will want her back. You want to use her as bait." It was not a question. "I want to catch these men before they hurt anyone else," Marshal Duncan said firmly. "But I will not put Miss Foster at risk. She has been through enough. We will telegraph her father, get her home safe. The gang will be my problem." The doctor emerged from the back room, drying his hands on a towel. "She is severely dehydrated and malnourished," he reported. "Bruised ribs, cuts, and abrasions, but nothing life-threatening. She needs rest, food, and water. I gave her something to help her sleep. She should be better by morning, though full recovery will take weeks." Vincent felt relief wash over him. "Can I see her?" The doctor nodded. "She asked for you before the medicine took effect. You can sit with her if you like." Vincent entered the small room quietly. Penelope lay on the cot, covered with a clean blanket, her face peaceful in sleep. Someone had cleaned the dirt from her face, and in the lamplight he could see her properly for the first time. She was beautiful, but it was more than that. There was strength in the set of her jaw, intelligence in the curve of her brow. Even unconscious, she radiated that same fierce determination he had noticed in the cellar. He pulled a chair beside the cot and sat down, suddenly exhausted. It had been a long day, full of tension and danger. His muscles ached and his mind felt foggy with fatigue, but he could not bring himself to leave her side. The night passed slowly. Vincent dozed in the chair, waking periodically to check on Penelope. Each time she was sleeping peacefully, her breathing steady and regular. The doctor came in twice to examine her and pronounced himself satisfied with her progress. As dawn light began to filter through the small window, Penelope stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, confusion clouding them for a moment before memory returned. She looked around the unfamiliar room, then her gaze found Vincent and she relaxed. "You stayed," she said, her voice stronger than it had been the night before. "I wanted to make sure you were all right," Vincent said, feeling suddenly self-conscious. "How do you feel?" "Like I was trampled by a herd of cattle," she said with a weak smile. "But alive, thanks to you." She pushed herself up to a sitting position, wincing at the movement. "The doctor told me I was lucky that you got me here just in time." "You are stronger than you think," Vincent said. "Most people would not have survived what you went through." Penelope looked down at her hands, which were bandaged where the shackles had rubbed her wrists raw. "I kept thinking about my father," she said quietly. "About how much it would hurt him if I died. My mother passed 5 years ago. I am all he has left. I could not let those men take that away from him. Vincent reached out and gently took her hand. You do not have to think about that now. You are safe. The marshal is going to send a telegram to your father. Let him know you are alive. We will get you home. Penelope's fingers tightened around his. What about you? Will you be there? When I go home, the question hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning neither of them was quite ready to acknowledge. Vincent found himself unwilling to let go of her hand, unwilling to think about a future where he walked away from this woman who had somehow become important to him in the span of a single night. If you want me to be, he said softly. I do. The words were simple, but the emotion behind them was complex, a tangle of gratitude and something deeper, something that had taken root in those desperate moments of their flight and was growing stronger with each passing hour. The marshal knocked on the door frame, interrupting the moment. Miss Foster, I am glad to see you awake. I have sent the telegram to your father. He should receive it within a few hours. He turned to Vincent. We need to talk about the Cassidy gang. Can I borrow you for a moment? Vincent squeezed Penelope's hand once more, then reluctantly released it and followed the marshal into the main office. Marshal Duncan closed the door and gestured for Vincent to sit. 3 of the gang members were spotted at a saloon on the edge of town last night, the marshal said. They were asking questions about strangers who might have ridden in, particularly a man with a woman. My deputy heard about it this morning. They are still looking for Miss Foster. Vincent felt his jaw tighten. Then we need to move her somewhere safer. This office has too many windows, too many ways in. Agreed. There is a hotel on the other side of town, the Golden Eagle. The owner is a friend, and she has a room on the top floor with only one entrance. We can post guards, keep Miss Foster secure until her father arrives or until we capture the gang. I will stay with her, Vincent said. It was not a request. The marshal studied him for a long moment, then nodded. I figured as much. You have got that look. What look? The look of a man who has found something worth protecting. Marshal Duncan smiled. I have been doing this job for 30 years, son. I recognize it when I see it. Just make sure you keep your head clear. Emotions can get you killed out here. Vincent knew the marshal was right, but he also knew it was too late for warnings. Something had shifted inside him from the moment he had seen Penelope chained in that cellar, and there was no going back now. They moved Penelope to the hotel an hour later, taking back streets and moving quickly to avoid notice. The Golden Eagle was a respectable establishment, 3 stories of whitewashed wood with lace curtains in the windows. The owner, a formidable woman named Sarah Chen, who had come to California during the gold rush and stayed to build her own fortune, welcomed them personally. Any friend of the marshal is a friend of mine, she said, her accent carrying traces of her Cantonese heritage mixed with years of American speech. The room is ready. No one will bother her here. The room was small but clean, with a comfortable bed, a washstand, and a window overlooking the street. Marshal Duncan positioned a deputy at the stairs, the only way to access the 3rd floor. Vincent checked the room thoroughly, satisfying himself that there were no hidden entrances or security weaknesses. Penelope sat on the edge of the bed, looking around with tired eyes. This is nice, she said. Better than that cellar. You should rest more, Vincent said. Your body needs time to heal. I have been resting. What I need is food and a proper bath. She looked down at her filthy, torn dress with distaste, and clothes that do not smell like a root cellar. Sarah appeared in the doorway as if summoned, carrying an armload of women's clothing. I thought you might need these, she said. My daughter left them when she married and moved east. You look about her size, and I will have a bath brought up. You just say the word. Penelope's eyes filled with tears at the kindness. Thank you so much." "No thanks needed," Sarah said briskly. "We women have to look out for each other in this rough country. Now you," she turned to Vincent, "out. Give the lady some privacy." Vincent found himself ushered into the hallway before he could protest. The door closed firmly behind him, and he heard the bolt slide home. He took up position against the wall, deciding he would stand guard while Penelope bathed and changed. The deputy stationed at the stairs, a young man named Tom Riley, gave him a sympathetic look. "That Mrs. Chen, she does not take no for an answer." "Apparently not," Vincent agreed. He could hear the sounds of activity from inside the room, water being poured, Penelope's soft voice thanking the hotel staff. He found himself imagining her in the bath, then firmly pushed the thought away. She had been through a terrible ordeal. The last thing she needed was him entertaining improper thoughts about her. But it was hard to ignore the pull he felt toward her, the fierce protectiveness that had taken root in his chest, the way his heart had lifted when she had asked him to stay with her. He had known her less than a day, and yet she had somehow become the center of his world. An hour passed before the door opened again and Sarah emerged. "She is decent now," she said with a knowing look. "You can go back in, but behave yourself." Vincent felt his face heat but nodded respectfully. He entered the room to find Penelope transformed. She wore a simple blue dress that brought out the color of her eyes, her hair cleaned and braided over one shoulder. She looked healthier, more alert, though the bruises on her face were still visible. "Better?" he asked. "Much?" She smiled at him, and he felt his heart do something complicated in his chest. "Come sit with me. I know you are supposed to be guarding me, but I would like the company. Tell me about yourself, Vincent Jamison. You know all about my troubles, but I know almost nothing about you." Vincent pulled the chair closer to the bed and sat down. "There is not much to tell. I grew up in Wyoming, worked ranches since I was 14, lost my parents to fever when I was young, raised by my uncle. He taught me everything I know about horses and tracking. I have been working the double R for 3 years now. But you do work for the marshal too, sometimes. When he needs someone to track outlaws or find missing cattle, it pays better than ranch work and I am good at it," he shrugged. "I like the work, like knowing I am helping people." "Like you helped me," Penelope's voice was soft. "I still cannot quite believe you came along when you did. Another few hours and I think I would have died down in that cellar, either from thirst or when the gang came back for me. You do not have to think about that anymore. You are safe now." "Am I?" She looked toward the window where afternoon light was beginning to slant through the curtains. "They are still out there. The marshal said they were in town last night looking for me. They will not give up easily. That ransom money was their big score. Then we will deal with them." "The marshal has a plan." "What plan?" Vincent hesitated. He had not actually discussed this with Marshal Duncan, but he knew what needed to happen. "We wait for your father to arrive with the ransom money. When the gang tries to collect, we will be ready for them." "It is the only way to draw them out." Penelope's eyes widened. "You want to use me as bait?" "No, I want to use the money as bait. You will be here, safe, with me watching over you. The gang will not get anywhere near you. But they will come for the money, and when they do, the marshal and his men will capture them. And if something goes wrong, if they get past the marshal," Vincent leaned forward, taking both her hands in his, "I will not let anything happen to you. I promise you that. I will protect you with my life if I have to." Penelope searched his face, and Vincent saw the moment she decided to trust him. "All right," she said. "I believe you, but Vincent, you have to promise me something else. Promise me you will not get yourself killed trying to protect me. I could not bear it if you died because of me." The emotion in her voice was raw and real, and Vincent realized with a start that she felt it too. This connection that had formed between them, this bond that defied logic and common sense. She cared about him, maybe as much as he was beginning to care about her. "I promise," he said, though he knew it was a promise he might not be able to keep. In his experience, life in the West rarely went according to plan. They spent the rest of the afternoon talking, the conversation flowing easily from topic to topic. Penelope told him about growing up on the ranch, about learning to ride before she could walk, about her mother's death and her father's grief. Vincent shared stories about his uncle, about the vast open spaces of Wyoming, about the satisfaction of a job well done and a day's honest work. As the sun began to set, Sarah brought them dinner, a hearty meal of beef stew and fresh bread. They ate together, the simple domesticity of the moment feeling strangely significant. This was what life could be like, Vincent thought. Sharing meals, sharing stories, sharing a future. He caught himself and mentally shook his head. He was getting ahead of himself. Penelope was a rancher's daughter from California, probably wealthy and well-educated. He was a ranch hand and occasional tracker, with nothing to his name but his horse and his reputation. When this was over, she would go back to her life, and he would go back to his. That was reality. But the thought left a hollow ache in his chest. As night fell, Marshal Duncan arrived with news. "Your father received the telegram," he told Penelope. "He is leaving immediately with the ransom money. He should arrive in 3 days, maybe 4 if the weather holds." He was beside himself with relief to know you are alive. Penelope closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. "Thank God," she whispered. "Thank God." "There is more," the marshal continued. "The gang sent their own telegram to the hotel where your father was staying, before they knew you had escaped. They demanded the ransom be delivered to Sierra City in 1 week. Your father will arrive ahead of schedule, which gives us an advantage." "What kind of advantage?" Vincent asked. "We can set the terms of the exchange, make it happen on our ground with our men in position. The gang thinks they still have Miss Foster, so they will not be as cautious as they might be otherwise." "But they know I escaped," Penelope pointed out. "They chased us yesterday." "They will know something is wrong when they do not hear from their friends at the farmhouse." Marshal Duncan nodded grimly. "Which is why we need to move quickly. I have sent word to the territorial marshal in Sacramento. He is sending additional men. Between his deputies and mine, we will have enough to surround any location the gang chooses for the exchange." Vincent did not like the plan. Too many variables, too many things that could go wrong. But he also knew they had few other options. The Cassidy gang had to be stopped, and this might be their only chance. "I want to be there," Penelope said suddenly. "At the exchange, I want to see their faces when they realize they lost." "Absolutely not," Vincent said firmly. "It is too dangerous." "She is right, though," Marshal Duncan said thoughtfully. "The gang will expect to see her. If she is not there, they might get spooked and run. We need them to commit to come out into the open." "No." Vincent stood up, his voice hard. "I did not risk my life to save her just so you could use her as bait. Find another way." Penelope stood as well, facing him. "It is my choice, Vincent. They took weeks of my life. They killed innocent people. I have a right to be part of bringing them to justice. You have a right to be safe. To go home to your father and put this nightmare behind you. I will never be able to put it behind me if I do not see this through. Do not you understand? I need this. I need to know that I did not just run and hide, that I fought back." Vincent saw the determination in her eyes, the need that drove her, and he understood. But understanding did not make it any easier to accept. "Then I will be right beside you," he said. "Every moment. Not because I do not think you are capable, but because I cannot stand the thought of losing you." The words hung between them, more intimate than anything they had shared so far. Penelope's expression softened, and she reached up to touch his face, her fingers gentle against his stubbled cheek. "You will not lose me," she said. "We will see this through together." Marshal Duncan cleared his throat awkwardly. "I will leave you two to discuss the details. Miss Foster, think carefully about this. If you change your mind, no one will think less of you." After the marshal left, Vincent and Penelope stood facing each other in the lamplight, the weight of unspoken feelings heavy in the air. Vincent knew he should step back, maintain professional distance, but he could not seem to make himself move. "Vincent," Penelope said softly, "thank you. For everything. For saving me, for staying with me, for caring about what happens to me." "It is more than caring," Vincent admitted, the words coming from somewhere deep and honest within him. "Penelope, I know we barely know each other. I know the circumstances are complicated and strange. But I have to tell you the truth. When I saw you in that cellar, something in me recognized something in you, and every moment since then that feeling has only grown stronger. I do not know what to call it, but I know it matters. You matter to me." Penelope's eyes shimmered with tears, but she was smiling. "I feel it too. From the moment you broke those chains, I have felt safe with you in a way I have never felt with anyone, and it is more than gratitude. It is something real, something I want to explore if you will let me." Vincent reached up and gently wiped away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. "I would like that, very much. But first, we need to finish this. We need to make sure you are truly safe, that those men can never hurt you or anyone else again. Then we will finish it together." The next 3 days passed in a strange suspension of time. Vincent rarely left Penelope's side except to confer with the marshal or to catch a few hours of sleep in the adjacent room. They talked for hours, sharing stories and dreams, learning each other's likes and dislikes, building a foundation for something neither of them was quite ready to name, but both could feel growing stronger. Penelope regained her strength quickly, the youth and health that had sustained her through her ordeal now helping her recover. The bruises faded to yellow, the cuts healed, and the haunted look gradually left her eyes. She laughed more easily, smiled more often, and Vincent found himself falling deeper with each passing moment. On the evening of the 3rd day, Marshal Duncan arrived with more news. "Your father will be here by noon tomorrow," he told Penelope, "and we have received another telegram from the gang. They want to do the exchange tomorrow evening at sunset, in the canyon 2 miles north of town. They will bring proof that Miss Foster is alive if her father brings the full ransom, $10,000. "Proof?" Penelope asked. "Probably something of yours that they took during the kidnapping. Jewelry, maybe, or personal effects." The marshal turned to Vincent. "My men will be in position by late afternoon. The territorial marshal is sending 6 deputies. Combined with my 4, that is 11 men against what we believe is 5 gang members. The odds are in our favor." "The odds mean nothing if one of those men gets a lucky shot," Vincent said. "What is the plan for keeping Penelope safe?" "I will be on horseback with my father and Vincent," Penelope said before the marshal could answer. "We will ride into the canyon as if we are complying with their demands. Your men will be hidden in the rocks above, ready to move in once the gang shows themselves." "It is a solid plan," Marshal Duncan admitted, "but Vincent is right to be cautious. These men are dangerous. They will be armed and probably expecting a trap, even if they are not sure of it." Vincent spent that night pacing his room, unable to sleep, his mind running through every possible scenario. He had cleaned and checked his guns 3 times, made sure his horse was rested and ready, gone over the plan until he could recite it in his sleep. But none of that eased the knot of worry in his gut. Around midnight, he heard a soft knock on his door. He opened it to find Penelope standing in the hallway, wearing a cotton nightgown with a shawl wrapped around her shoulders. "I could not sleep," she said. "Can I come in? I know it is not proper, but I need to talk to you." Vincent glanced toward the stairs where the deputy stood watch, then stepped back to let her enter. He left the door slightly ajar, aware of the proprieties even in these unusual circumstances. "What is wrong?" he asked, though he thought he knew. The same fears that kept him awake probably haunted her as well. "I keep thinking about tomorrow," she said, sitting on the edge of his bed. "About all the things that could go wrong. What if the marshal's plan fails? What if someone gets hurt? What if they shoot my father?" Vincent sat beside her, taking her hand. "We will not let that happen. Every precaution has been taken. The marshal knows what he is doing. But you cannot guarantee it will work. You cannot promise me that everything will be all right." "No," he admitted. "I cannot promise that. Life does not come with guarantees, but I can promise that I will do everything in my power to keep you and your father safe. And I can promise that no matter what happens tomorrow, you are one of the strongest, bravest people I have ever met." Penelope turned to face him fully, her eyes searching his. "Vincent, if something happens tomorrow, if things go wrong, I need you to know something. These past few days with you have been the best of my life. Despite everything, despite the fear and the uncertainty, being with you has made me happier than I have ever been. And I think I am falling in love with you." Vincent's heart stopped, then started again with a fierce, painful intensity. "Penelope," he breathed, then pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "I am already in love with you. I have been since the moment you grabbed my wrist in that cellar and refused to let me leave you. You are everything I never knew I was looking for." She pulled back just far enough to look up at him, and then they were kissing, a gentle meeting of lips that quickly deepened into something more passionate. Vincent ran his hands through her unbound hair, marveling at its softness, at the way she fit perfectly in his arms. Penelope's fingers clutched at his shirt, pulling him closer, and he could feel her heart racing against his chest. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "We should stop," he said reluctantly. "You deserve to be courted properly, not kissed in a hotel room in the middle of the night." "I do not care about proper," Penelope said fiercely. "I care about being alive and being with you. After tomorrow, assuming we all survive, I want to build a life with you, Vincent Jamison. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep in your arms every night. I want to know what it is like to be truly happy." "You will be," Vincent promised. "I swear it. After tomorrow, when this is all over, I will court you the right way. I will ask your father for permission to marry you. And then I will spend the rest of my life making sure you are happy." They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other, stealing kisses, making quiet promises about the future. Finally, as the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky, Penelope reluctantly returned to her own room. Vincent stood at his window, watching the sun rise over Sierra City, and prayed that they would both live to see another one together. Patrick Foster arrived at noon, just as the marshal had predicted. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man in his 50s, with gray-streaked hair and eyes the same color as his daughter's. Vincent watched from the hotel window as the marshal met him in the street and brought him inside. The reunion between father and daughter was emotional. Patrick swept Penelope into his arms, holding her as if he would never let go, tears streaming down his weathered face. Penelope clung to him, sobbing, all the fear and pain of the past weeks finally released in the safety of her father's embrace. "My girl," Patrick kept saying. "My precious girl. I thought I had lost you. When that telegram came saying you were taken, I thought I would never see you again. "I am all right, Father," Penelope said, though her voice was thick with tears. "Vincent saved me. He found me and brought me here." Patrick looked over his daughter's head at Vincent, who stood awkwardly by the door. "You are Vincent Jamison?" "Yes, sir." Patrick released Penelope and crossed to Vincent, extending his hand. His grip was strong, his gaze direct and assessing. "Marshal Duncan told me what you did, how you rescued my daughter from those animals. I owe you a debt I can never repay." "You do not owe me anything, sir," Vincent said. "I did what anyone would do." "That is not true, and we both know it." Patrick glanced back at his daughter, who was watching them with an expression Vincent could not quite read. "The marshal tells me there is to be an exchange tonight, that we are using the ransom money to draw out the gang." "That is the plan, sir. The gang thinks we are complying with their demands. They do not know that we will have men positioned throughout the canyon. And my daughter insists on being part of this foolishness," Patrick said, his voice hardening. "I told the marshal absolutely not. She has been through enough." "Father, we discussed this," Penelope said, moving to stand beside Vincent. "I need to be there, for my own peace of mind. Your peace of mind is not worth your life. Then it is a good thing Vincent will be there to make sure nothing happens to me." Patrick's gaze shifted between his daughter and Vincent, and understanding dawned in his eyes. "I see," he said slowly. "You two have become close." "Yes," Penelope said simply, reaching for Vincent's hand. "Very close. And before you start worrying about propriety or whether his intentions are honorable, I should tell you that I am in love with him, and I believe he is in love with me." Vincent felt his face heat, but he met Patrick's eyes steadily. "It is true, sir. I know the circumstances are unusual, and I know I am not what you probably hoped for your daughter, but I love her, and if we all survive tonight, I would like to ask your permission to marry her." Patrick was silent for a long moment, studying Vincent with those penetrating gray eyes. Finally, he said, "My wife used to say that love does not wait for convenient times, that it comes when it comes, and all we can do is hold on and try not to mess it up." He smiled sadly. "She was the smartest person I ever knew. So I will tell you what I told the young man who asked to marry her 30 years ago. If my daughter loves you, if she has chosen you, then I will not stand in her way. But you had better take care of her, or you will answer to me." "I will, sir. I promise you that." The afternoon passed too quickly. Marshal Duncan reviewed the plan one final time, making sure everyone knew their positions and responsibilities. The territorial deputies arrived, hard-eyed men who had seen their share of action. Vincent checked his weapons again, made sure Ranger was saddled and ready, tried to ignore the increasing tightness in his chest. As the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, they mounted up. Patrick rode a large gray stallion, the saddlebags on either side heavy with the ransom money. Penelope sat her borrowed horse with easy grace, wearing split skirts that allowed her to ride astride. Vincent stayed close to her side, his hand never far from his gun. Marshal Duncan and his men had left an hour earlier, taking hidden positions throughout the canyon. The plan was for Patrick, Penelope, and Vincent to ride in alone, making it look like they were complying with the gang's demands. Once the gang showed themselves and moved to collect the money, the lawmen would close the trap. The canyon was a narrow defile between two steep rock walls, littered with boulders and sparse vegetation. The perfect place for an ambush, which was no doubt why the gang had chosen it. Vincent's every instinct screamed danger as they rode deeper into the shadowed passage. "There," Patrick said quietly, pointing ahead to where 5 figures on horseback waited in the center of the canyon. "That is them." Vincent recognized Jack Cassidy from the description he had been given. The other 4 men were strangers, but they all had the same hard, dangerous look. Outlaws who had chosen a life of violence and were good at it. "Remember the plan," Vincent murmured to Penelope. "Stay calm, let your father do the talking. If shooting starts, you ride straight back out of the canyon. Do not stop, do not look back." "Not without you," she said fiercely. "Penelope, not without you." There was no time to argue. They were within shouting distance of the gang now. Cassidy urged his horse forward, his hand resting casually on his gun belt. "Foster," he called out. "You brought the money." "I brought it," Patrick said, his voice hard. "Where is my daughter?" Cassidy's expression shifted to confusion, then alarm as he saw Penelope sitting her horse between Patrick and Vincent. "What the hell? How did you—" "It is over, Cassidy," Vincent said. "You are surrounded. Tell your men to drop their weapons." For a moment the canyon was silent except for the sound of the wind whistling through the rocks. Then Cassidy laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Surrounded? By who?" "That idiot marshal and his handful of deputies. Boys," he called to his men. "Take them." Everything happened at once. The gang members drew their guns. Vincent threw himself from his saddle, pulling Penelope down with him as bullets began to fly. Patrick's horse reared, nearly throwing him. From the rocks above, Marshal Duncan and his men opened fire, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Vincent shielded Penelope with his body, his own gun drawn and returning fire. He saw one of the gang members fall, then another. Cassidy was shouting orders, but his men were panicking, caught in the crossfire they had not expected. A bullet struck the rock inches from Vincent's head, spraying him with stone chips. He rolled, firing twice more, and saw Cassidy clutch his shoulder and fall from his horse. The other gang members tried to make a run for it, but the marshal's men had blocked the exits. It was over in less than 2 minutes. When the shooting stopped, 4 of the 5 gang members lay on the ground, either dead or wounded. The 5th had his hands raised in surrender. Vincent's ears were ringing, his heart pounding, but he was unharmed. He turned to Penelope, running his hands over her frantically. "Are you hurt? Did you get hit?" "I am fine," she said, though she was shaking. "You, fine. Your father—" Patrick was already dismounting, his face pale but determined. "I am well. Is it over? Are they all captured?" Marshal Duncan climbed down from his position in the rocks, holstering his gun. "It is over. Good work, everyone. Doc will need to look at the wounded before we move them to jail, but I think we can safely say the Cassidy gang is finished." Vincent helped Penelope to her feet, and she immediately threw her arms around him, burying her face against his chest. He held her tightly, feeling the adrenaline slowly drain away, replaced by profound relief and gratitude. They had done it. They had survived. "I thought I was going to lose you," Penelope whispered against his shirt. "When those bullets started flying, I was so afraid. But you did not. I am right here. We both are." Patrick approached them, and Vincent reluctantly released Penelope. Her father looked tired, older than he had that morning, but there was satisfaction in his eyes. "You kept your promise," Patrick said to Vincent. "You kept her safe." "We all did, sir. The marshal and his men deserve the credit. But you were the one standing between my daughter and those guns." "Do not think I did not see that." Patrick extended his hand again. "Thank you, Vincent, for everything." They rode back to Sierra City as the last light faded from the sky, the mood somber despite their victory. Men had died in that canyon, and however deserving they might have been of their fate, death was never something to celebrate. But justice had been served, and the Cassidy gang would never hurt anyone else. At the hotel, Sarah had prepared a celebratory meal, though none of them had much appetite. They ate mechanically, exhaustion settling over them like a blanket. Finally, Patrick pushed back from the table and looked at Vincent and Penelope. "I am taking my daughter home tomorrow," he said. "Back to the ranch where she belongs. And I hope, Vincent Jamison, that you will be coming with us. Because unless I miss my guess, my daughter is not going to give me a moment's peace if you do not." Vincent looked at Penelope, saw the hope and love shining in her eyes, and felt his heart expand with joy. "I would like that very much, sir, if you will have me." "The question is whether you will have us," Patrick said with a slight smile. "Ranch work is hard and my daughter can be stubborn." "I am a ranch hand, sir. Hard work does not scare me, and as for stubborn," Vincent took Penelope's hand, "I think I can handle it." They left Sierra City 2 days later, after the wounded gang members had been transported to jail, and Vincent had given his full statement to the marshal. Patrick had purchased a wagon for the journey, knowing Penelope was still recovering her strength, though she insisted she could ride if needed. The trip to Sacramento took a week, following dusty roads through the mountains and valleys of Northern California. Vincent rode alongside the wagon, sometimes talking with Patrick about ranching and horses, sometimes riding in companionable silence. In the evenings, when they made camp, he and Penelope would walk together, holding hands and talking about their future. "The ranch has over 1,000 acres," Penelope told him one evening as they watched the sunset. "We braid and train horses, sell them to ranchers and the cavalry. It is beautiful country, Vincent, green and wild and free. I think you will love it." "I will love it because you are there," he said simply. "I could be happy anywhere as long as I am with you." Penelope leaned against him and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "Do you ever think about how strange this is? That we met under such terrible circumstances, but somehow found something wonderful?" "I think about it all the time," Vincent admitted. "I think about what would have happened if I had not followed that trail to the farmhouse. If I had given up and gone back to Wyoming, we never would have met. But you did not give up. You saved me, and now I cannot imagine my life without you in it. You will never have to." Vincent turned her in his arms, looking down at her face in the fading light. "I know I have not officially asked yet, but Penelope Foster, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life loving you and protecting you and trying to make you as happy as you make me?" Penelope's smile could have lit up the night. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." They kissed as the stars began to appear overhead, and Vincent felt a peace he had never known settle over him. This was where he belonged. Not Wyoming, not the Double R Ranch, but wherever Penelope was. She was his home now. The Foster Ranch exceeded even Penelope's descriptions. It sprawled across a valley between 2 mountain ranges, with green pastures dotted with horses and cattle. The main house was a large, comfortable structure of whitewashed wood, with a wraparound porch and flower boxes in every window. Barns and outbuildings were scattered across the property, all well-maintained and prosperous-looking. The ranch hands gathered to welcome them home, and Vincent could see the relief and joy on their faces when they saw Penelope. She was clearly well-loved here, and he understood why. Even after everything she had been through, she took the time to greet each person by name, to ask about their families, to thank them for their concern. Patrick showed Vincent to a small cabin near the main house. "Guest quarters usually," he explained. "But I am thinking you might want your own space for now, at least until the wedding." He gave Vincent a pointed look. "Which I assume will be happening soon as Penelope wants," Vincent said. "I do not need a long engagement. I know what I want." "Good." "Neither did I when I married her mother. We were engaged 3 weeks before I convinced her father to let us marry. Happiest decision I ever made." Patrick's expression turned wistful. "I miss her every day, but I see her in our daughter. The same strength, the same fire." "You are a lucky man, Vincent." "I know, sir. I will not take it for granted." The weeks that followed were the happiest of Vincent's life. He threw himself into learning the ranch, working alongside the hands to understand every aspect of the operation. He discovered he had a natural talent for training horses, a patience and intuition that made even the most difficult animals respond to him. In the evenings, he and Penelope would sit on the porch, planning their wedding and their future. She wanted something simple, she said, just family and the ranch workers, held outdoors under the big oak tree on the property. Vincent agreed happily, caring only that at the end of it she would be his wife. They set the date for 6 weeks after their arrival, enough time for Penelope to fully recover and for the necessary preparations to be made. A local seamstress made her a beautiful gown of white silk, and Vincent purchased a new suit for the occasion, his first ever. The night before the wedding, Patrick invited Vincent into his study for a drink. He poured them each a measure of whiskey and gestured for Vincent to sit. "Tomorrow, my daughter becomes your wife," Patrick said. "And tomorrow, you officially become part of this family. I want you to know that I have been watching you these past weeks, watching how you work, how you treat my daughter, how you conduct yourself, and I am satisfied that I made the right decision in giving you my blessing. Thank you, sir. That means more to me than I can say. I also want you to know that this ranch will be yours and Penelope's someday. I am not getting any younger and I have no other heirs. The work we have built here, the life we have made, I want it to continue. I want to know it will be in good hands." Vincent was stunned. "Sir, I do not know what to say. That is incredibly generous." "It is not generosity, it is practicality. You are going to be my son. This will be your home and your legacy, same as it is mine. I am just making it official." Patrick raised his glass. "To family, to the future." "To family," Vincent echoed, clinking his glass against Patrick's. "And to the woman who saved us both by being strong enough to survive." The wedding day dawned clear and warm, perfect California weather. The ranch hands had spent the previous day decorating the area around the old oak tree with wildflowers and ribbons. Chairs were set up in neat rows, and a small table served as an altar. Vincent stood under the tree in his new suit, his heart pounding, watching as Penelope walked toward him on her father's arm. She was breathtaking in her white gown, her dark hair adorned with flowers, her face glowing with happiness. When she reached his side and took his hand, Vincent felt tears sting his eyes. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt, conducted by a circuit preacher who traveled through the area once a month. They exchanged vows, promising to love and cherish each other for the rest of their lives. Vincent slipped a simple gold band onto Penelope's finger, and she did the same for him. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the preacher said. "You may kiss your bride." Vincent gathered Penelope into his arms and kissed her with all the love and joy he felt, aware of the cheering and applause from their guests, but caring only about the woman in his arms. His wife, his partner, his future. The celebration that followed lasted well into the night. There was food and music and dancing. Patrick gave a toast that had everyone laughing and crying. Sarah Chen, who had traveled from Sierra City for the occasion, presented them with a beautiful quilt she had sewn herself. Marshall Duncan, also in attendance, shook Vincent's hand and told him he was lucky. "I know," Vincent said, watching Penelope laugh at something one of the ranch hands was saying. "Believe me, I know." As the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Vincent and Penelope slipped away to the cabin that would now be their home. Patrick had insisted they take one of the larger houses on the property, but they had both wanted to start in the small cabin, making it their own space before eventually moving somewhere bigger. Inside, alone for the first time as husband and wife, they came together with a passion that had been building for weeks. Vincent was gentle, mindful of what Penelope had been through. but she met him with equal desire, showing him wordlessly that she was healed, that she was ready, that she wanted this as much as he did. Afterward, lying tangled together in their bed, Penelope traced patterns on Vincent's chest with her fingertips. "I love you," she said softly. "I know I have said it before, but I want to say it now as your wife. I love you, Vincent Jamison." "I love you too, Penelope Jamison," he said, savoring her new name. "More than I ever thought it was possible to love anyone. Do you ever think about that day, when you found me in the cellar, sometimes? But I try not to dwell on it. I prefer to think about everything that came after. About how we found each other in the darkness and chose to walk into the light together." "That is a beautiful way to put it." She kissed his chest, right over his heart. "I used to be so afraid. Even before the kidnapping, I was afraid of so many things. Afraid of disappointing my father, afraid of never finding love, afraid of wasting my life. But you changed all that. You made me brave." "You were always brave," Vincent corrected. "I just helped you see it." They fell asleep in each other's arms, and Vincent's last thought before sleep claimed him was that he had never been so content, so at peace with his place in the world. The months that followed were full of hard work and simple pleasures. Vincent proved himself an invaluable addition to the ranch, his skills with horses bringing in new contracts and increasing their reputation. He and Patrick worked well together, developing a mutual respect that deepened into genuine affection. Penelope threw herself into managing the household, but she also continued to work with the horses, refusing to be confined to traditionally feminine roles. Vincent loved that about her, loved her independence and strength, even when it occasionally led to arguments between them. Their first fight came about 4 months after their wedding. Penelope wanted to ride out to check on a herd in the far pasture, but a storm was rolling in, and Vincent thought it was too dangerous. "I have been riding these lands since I was a child," Penelope said, her voice rising in frustration. "I know every trail, every shelter. I will be fine." "I am not saying you cannot handle it," Vincent replied, trying to stay calm. "I am saying there is no reason to risk it when the ranch hands can go instead. The ranch hands have other work, and I am not some delicate flower who needs to be protected from a little rain. I know you are not, but you are my wife, and I am allowed to worry about you." Penelope glared at him for a moment, then her expression softened. "I know you worry, and I love you for it, but Vincent, you have to let me be who I am. You cannot keep me in a cage, even a comfortable one." Vincent realized she was right. "I am sorry," he said. "You are right. Go check on the herd. Just promise me you will be careful." "I promise." She kissed him, and the tension between them dissolved. "And Vincent, thank you for understanding. It means everything to me that you see me as an equal partner, not someone who needs constant protection." They learned to navigate their differences, to communicate and compromise. Their love deepened and matured, becoming less about passionate declarations and more about the quiet comfort of partnership, of building a life together. Winter came to the ranch, bringing cold rains and occasional snow. Vincent and Penelope spent long evenings by the fire, talking and planning. They spoke about expanding the ranch, about breeding a new line of horses, about the future they were creating together. In early spring, Penelope realized she was pregnant. She told Vincent one morning as they sat together on the porch, watching the sun rise over the mountains. "We are going to have a baby," she said, taking his hand and placing it on her still flat stomach. "You are going to be a father." Vincent felt as if his heart might burst from joy. "Are you sure?" "The doctor confirmed it yesterday when I went into town. He says the baby should come in late autumn, probably October." Vincent pulled her into his arms, holding her carefully as if she might break. "This is the best news you could have given me. You have made me the happiest man alive." "I am happy too," Penelope said, and a little scared, but mostly happy. Patrick was overjoyed when they told him. He insisted on celebrating with a special dinner and made plans to convert one of the rooms in the main house into a nursery. "My grandchild will want for nothing," he declared, "and I am going to be the best grandfather who ever lived." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Penelope continued to work with the horses through her first trimester, though Vincent convinced her to leave the more dangerous tasks to others. She complained about being coddled, but secretly seemed to appreciate his attentiveness. As her belly grew, she finally agreed to take on lighter duties, spending more time managing the household and the ranch's books. She had a good head for numbers, and under her management, the ranch became even more profitable. In late October, on a crisp autumn morning, Penelope went into labor. The doctor was summoned from town, and Vincent paced outside the bedroom, listening to Penelope's cries and feeling utterly helpless. Patrick sat with him, offering silent support. After what seemed like an eternity but was actually about 8 hours, Vincent heard the sound he had been waiting for. A baby crying, strong, healthy lungs announcing their arrival to the world. The doctor emerged, smiling. "You have a son. A big, healthy boy, and your wife did beautifully. She is tired but well. You can go in now." Vincent entered the bedroom on shaking legs. Penelope lay propped up against pillows, her face pale and exhausted but radiantly happy. In her arms, wrapped in a soft blanket, was a tiny baby with a shock of dark hair. "Meet your son," Penelope said softly. "I was thinking we could name him after my father, Patrick Vincent Jamison." Vincent approached slowly, almost afraid to touch something so small and precious. But when Penelope placed the baby in his arms, he felt a love so overwhelming it nearly brought him to his knees. This was his son, his and Penelope's, a perfect blend of them both. "Hello, Patrick," he whispered. "Welcome to the world. Your mother and I are going to love you so much." The baby opened his eyes, dark blue like all newborns, and seemed to look directly at Vincent. In that moment, Vincent's life felt complete. Everything he had been through, every hardship and struggle had led him to this moment. To this woman, this child, this family, Patrick Foster came in to meet his namesake, and Vincent saw tears running down the older man's face as he held his grandson. "He is perfect," Patrick said. "Just perfect. My Mary would have been so happy." As winter settled over the ranch once again, Vincent found himself reflecting on how much his life had changed in just over a year. He had gone from a lonely ranch hand with no family and no prospects to a husband, father, and co-owner of a prosperous ranch. He had found love, purpose, and a place to belong. Little Patrick proved to be a good baby, healthy and generally content. He had his mother's gray eyes and his father's stubborn streak, according to Penelope. Vincent spent every spare moment with his son, marveling at each new milestone, each sound and expression. On their first wedding anniversary, Vincent and Penelope hired a neighbor girl to watch the baby for an evening and took a quiet ride to the spot where they had been married. They sat under the old oak tree, holding hands and watching the sunset. "I have been thinking about that day in the cellar," Penelope said. "The day you found me. I was so afraid, but then I saw your face, saw the determination in your eyes, and I knew I was going to be all right. I knew you would not give up on me." "I could not have given up on you even if I wanted to," Vincent said. "From that first moment you were important to me, essential. Like I had been walking around incomplete my whole life, and suddenly the missing piece appeared." "Do you think we would have found each other if it had not happened? If I had not been kidnapped?" Vincent considered the question. "I do not know. Maybe. Or maybe we would have passed like ships in the night, never knowing what we could have had together. I prefer to think that we were meant to find each other, one way or another, That fate or God or whatever you want to call it brought us together because we belong together. I like that thought. Penelope leaned her head on his shoulder. I am so grateful for the life we have built. For our son, for this ranch, for your love. Even knowing everything I went through, I would not change it because it brought me to you. You never have to go through anything like that again, Vincent promised. I will spend the rest of my life making sure you are safe and happy and loved. They sat in comfortable silence as stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Vincent thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment, about the scared woman he had found in that cellar, and the strong, confident wife and mother she had become. He thought about their son, sleeping peacefully in the main house under his grandfather's watchful eye. He thought about the future stretching out before them, full of possibility and promise. The years continued to pass, each one bringing new joys and challenges. The ranch prospered under the combined efforts of Vincent, Penelope, and Patrick. They added more acreage, expanded their breeding program, and gained a reputation for producing the finest horses in California. Little Patrick grew into a lively toddler, full of energy and curiosity. He loved the horses and would spend hours watching the ranch hands work, trying to imitate everything they did. Vincent saw himself in his son, that same connection to the land and animals, and it filled him with pride. When Patrick was 2, Penelope discovered she was pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy was more difficult. She was often tired and sick, unable to keep food down for weeks. Vincent worried constantly, but the doctor assured them everything was progressing normally. Their daughter was born on a stormy April night, smaller than Patrick had been, but just as healthy. They named her Mary Penelope Jamison, after both her grandmothers. She had her mother's dark hair and her father's strong features, and from the moment she arrived, she wrapped everyone around her tiny finger. Patrick Foster doted on both grandchildren, playing with them for hours and insisting they call him Grandpa Pat. He was in his 60s now, his hair completely gray, but he showed no signs of slowing down. He often said that the children had given him a new lease on life. By the time Mary was 3 and Patrick was 5, the ranch had become one of the most successful in the region. They employed over 20 full-time hands and had contracts to supply horses to ranches and cavalry posts throughout California and Nevada. Vincent had proved himself not just a skilled horseman but a savvy businessman. He negotiated fair deals, maintained good relationships with clients, and treated the workers with respect. The ranch hands were loyal to him in a way that money alone could not buy. Penelope balanced her roles as wife, mother, and ranch manager with grace. She was involved in every aspect of the operation, from training horses to managing finances. She taught their children to read and write, to ride and shoot, to treat others with kindness and respect. On quiet evenings after the children were in bed, Vincent and Penelope would sit together on their porch, holding hands and watching the stars. They talked about everything and nothing, comfortable in the intimacy they had built over years of marriage. You remember Sierra City? Penelope asked one such evening. And Marshall Duncan, I wonder what happened to him. I heard he retired a few years ago, Vincent said. Moved to San Francisco to live with his daughter, and Sarah Chen sold the Golden Eagle and opened a restaurant. Apparently, it is very successful. I should write to her, Penelope mused. Tell her about the children. She was so kind to me when I needed it most. I am sure she would love to hear from you. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, then Penelope said, Vincent, I want you to know something. These years with you have been the happiest of my life. Every day, I am grateful for what we have. For you, for our children, for this life we have built together. You gave me everything I ever wanted and things I did not even know to wish for." Vincent brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "You gave me a reason to be my best self. You made me want to be worthy of you, and I hope I have succeeded at least a little." "You have succeeded more than a little. You are exactly the man I always hoped to find. Strong and gentle, brave and kind. The children are so lucky to have you as their father." More years passed. Patrick and Mary grew into bright, capable children who loved the ranch as much as their parents did. Patrick showed Vincent's talent with horses, able to calm even the most skittish animal with patience and soft words. Mary had her mother's head for numbers and loved helping Penelope with the ranch's accounts. Patrick Foster, now in his 70s, finally began to slow down. He spent more time on the porch, watching his grandchildren play and telling them stories about the old days when he had first come to California. One spring morning, Patrick called Vincent into his study. He looked tired, Vincent thought, older than he had just weeks before. "Sit down, son," Patrick said. "I need to talk to you about something important." Vincent sat, concerned by the serious tone. "Is everything all right?" "I am old, Vincent. I am not going to live forever, though Lord knows I have had a good run, and I need to make sure my affairs are in order." He pulled out a sheaf of papers. "These are the deeds to the ranch, updated to list you and Penelope as the owners. It is yours now, officially. I have also set aside a trust for the children to be used for their education or whatever they need." "Patrick, you do not have to." "Yes, I do. This is not charity or sentiment. This is reality. You and Penelope run this ranch now. You have for years. I am just making it legal." He smiled. "Besides, I want to enjoy my remaining years playing with my grandchildren, not worrying about contracts and breeding schedules." Vincent accepted the papers, understanding what a momentous gesture this was. "Thank you, Patrick, for everything, for welcoming me into your family, for trusting me with your daughter and your legacy. I will honor that trust, I promise you. I know you will. That is why I am so content. I know the ranch is in good hands. I know my daughter is loved and my grandchildren are being raised right. An old man cannot ask for more than that." Patrick lived another 4 years, long enough to see young Patrick start learning the business of running a ranch, long enough to teach Mary to play chess, long enough to know that everything he had built would continue long after he was gone. He passed peacefully in his sleep one autumn night, with no pain or suffering. The whole community turned out for the funeral, a testament to the respect Patrick Foster had earned over his decades in California. Vincent gave the eulogy, speaking of Patrick's kindness, his wisdom, his love for his family and the land. Penelope stood beside him, tears streaming down her face but her head held high, showing the strength her father had taught her. They buried Patrick on a hillside overlooking the ranch, under a spreading oak tree similar to the one where Vincent and Penelope had been married. It seemed fitting that he would rest in a place where he could watch over everything he had loved. In the days and weeks that followed, the family came together to support each other through their grief. Vincent held Penelope when she cried, listened when she needed to talk, gave her space when she needed to be alone. The children, now 11 and 9, tried to be brave but needed extra reassurance and comfort. Slowly, life returned to normal. The ranch continued its work, the seasons changed, and the family found ways to honor Patrick's memory while still moving forward. They established a scholarship fund in his name for children interested in agriculture, and they planted a garden near his grave with his favorite flowers. As years continued to pass, Vincent and Penelope watched their children grow into remarkable young adults. Patrick Jr. showed every sign of becoming an excellent rancher, with his father's skills and his grandfather's business sense. Mary proved to have a gift for breeding programs, able to see potential in young horses that others missed. When Patrick was 20, he married a neighboring rancher's daughter, a bright young woman named Catherine who loved the ranch almost as much as he did. They built a house on the property, near Vincent and Penelope's home, and soon added grandchildren to the family. Mary took longer to settle down, more interested in building her reputation as a horse breeder than in marriage. But at 25, she met a veterinarian who had moved to the area from the east. They bonded over their shared love of animals and were married within a year. Vincent and Penelope found themselves grandparents to 4 grandchildren by the time they were in their 50s. The ranch had grown even more, now spanning over 5,000 acres and employing nearly 50 people. It was one of the most successful horse ranches in California, known for quality and fair dealing. On the 20th anniversary of their wedding, Vincent and Penelope took another ride to the oak tree where they had been married. They were older now, with silver threads in their hair and lines on their faces, but their love had only deepened over the years. 20 years, Penelope said wonderingly. It seems like yesterday and a lifetime ago all at once. The best 20 years of my life, Vincent said. And I am looking forward to 20 more at least. You remember what you said to me that first night in the hotel in Sierra City? You said you would spend your life making me happy. I remember. Have I succeeded? Penelope turned to face him fully, taking both his hands in hers. You have exceeded every expectation, every hope, every dream I ever had. You saved my life, Vincent, in more ways than just breaking those chains. You gave me purpose, love, family, happiness beyond measure. If I could go back and choose any life, any path, I would choose this one. I would choose you, every single time. Vincent pulled her close, kissing her with all the passion and tenderness of their early days together. And I would choose you, always and forever. They sat together under the oak tree as the sun set, content in the knowledge that they had built something lasting, something beautiful. Their children were thriving, their grandchildren were growing, and the ranch they had worked so hard to build would continue for generations to come. As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Vincent thought back to that summer day so many years ago when he had descended into a dark cellar and found a woman in chains. He thought about the courage it had taken for both of them to trust each other, to build a relationship from such a dark beginning. He thought about all the moments that had brought them to this place. The terrifying ride to Sierra City, the confrontation with the Cassidy gang, the wedding under the oak tree, the birth of their children, the years of hard work and simple joys. Every moment had been a thread woven into the tapestry of their life together, creating something far more beautiful than either of them could have created alone. What are you thinking about? Penelope asked softly. About how grateful I am, about how lucky we have been, about how much I love you and this life we have built. I love you too, Vincent Jamison, more today than yesterday, more tomorrow than today. They made their way back to the house as full darkness fell, walking hand in hand just as they had done thousands of times before. The lights were on in the main house, where their children and grandchildren had gathered for an anniversary dinner. Laughter and conversation drifted out through the open windows, the sounds of family and home. Vincent paused before they went inside, taking a moment to appreciate the scene before him. This was everything he had never known to hope for. This was the future that had grown from that single moment of courage when he had broken the chains that bound Penelope and carried her to safety. Ready? Penelope asked, squeezing his hand. Always, Vincent said. As long as I am with you. They walked into the house together, into the warmth and love of their family, into the life they had built through courage, trust, and an enduring love that had only grown stronger with time. Behind them, the stars shone down on the ranch that had become their legacy, illuminating the land that would shelter their family for generations to come. The story that had begun in darkness and fear had transformed into something beautiful and lasting. And as Vincent looked around at the faces of the people he loved, he knew that every struggle, every challenge, every moment of doubt had been worth it, because it had brought him here to this perfect moment, to this perfect life, and he would not change a single thing.